Hello and welcome to the Build Dad the Shoe Hype podcast. I am Jamie.
And I'm Mike.
That is true. And we are going to begin a series, again, all on the topic of masculinity, Christianity. What is it to be a man? How do we strive towards that? Is that true, Mike?
That is correct. So yeah, we're going to be looking at masculine virtue, as you said, how to cultivate. Well, what are these masculine virtues, and how to cultivate them. And I think it's important to distinguish what makes these virtues particularly important for men. I mean, because we could talk about the virtues of truthfulness, and how important it is to be truthful. And yeah, obviously it's important to be truthful, but you wouldn't argue that it's more important for a man to be truthful than it is a woman to be truthful. You just argue that it's important to be truthful.
Yeah, it's always the case.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to be looking at why these particular virtues are important for men particularly. But before we do that, I think it's good to start and just have a look at when we think of the word virtue, it comes from the Latin virtus, which is also derived from the Latin vir, which means man. And obviously, as alluded to in episode 1, those many months ago, in the ancient times, the word virtue was synonymous with manliness. So, and back in the day, obviously the manliness, what those virtues were basically the fighting virtues. So because obviously these were needed to defend the group, defend the tribe from other rival tribes, from other gangs, and these men needed these virtues to again hunt animals and so on and so forth. And obviously these roles of hunting, gathering, defending fell primarily on men, or almost solely on men, obviously because in part we're built for it, but also obviously females be raising children or pregnant with child at this time. Obviously birth control was not a thing back then. So yeah, I think it's have a look at those, and then also whilst we're doing that is again to re-emphasize the difference between let's say being a good man versus being good at being a man, or being a good man versus being a manly / unmanly man. Because as we alluded to before when analysing Andrew Tate, he's not a good man by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not unmanly. So it's like, well, how can those things be
the
true?
case?
Yeah, exactly. So perhaps differentiate between masculinity and morality. And then obviously the goal of every Christian man should be to become fully integrated. It's like, okay, we want to be a manly man, but we also want to be a man of sound character as well.
Yes, and I suppose the reason why we bother to look at all this stuff is because we're men and we're looking to develop.
Yeah,
and we like to talk this through to sharpen our own ideas, but also to do it together with people we know who are listening, just so that you guys can check we're not completely going off on one. So yeah, we'd love to go on this journey with people who are listening as well. Okay, so you mentioned virtue, and you went into some Latin, and you talked about how the men of ancient times, the first thing that they had to sort was kind of their physical ability, not least because they needed to hunt, and not least because they needed to protect. Like the physical aspect of old life certainly seems to be much more relevant back then. Is it still relevant today? Do we think?
Well, I mean, I think so. I mean, though it's less needed for survival, because obviously you don't have a saber-toothed tiger at the door, or
no. Oh, sorry, we don't. Right, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
True.
And there's at least in most parts of the country or parts of the world, you're not, at least the Western world, there's not barbarians at the gates thumping away and trying to get in.
Well, not in this country.
Yes, well, indeed.
At the moment.
Indeed, yes. Yes, so you think, okay, well, why is strength as necessary? But it's still something we admire. It's still a virtue that we admire in men. You kind of think about all the Marvel heroes. They're all stereotypically absolutely jacked, aren't they? And again, people that we don't value people for that. You know, a hero isn't valued because he's weak. We don't think, oh, look at that guy and look how weak he is.
He's so nice.
I want to be just like him.
Yeah.
It's just like, and it's if anything, like it kind of feeds into the redemption arc of heroes kind of thing. Again, strength, courage, mastery, honor. You don't think of the hero as being someone weak, timid, risk averse, disrespectful and incompetent. Or, you know, if he does start that way, he certainly doesn't end up that way. You kind of think of Spider-Man, you know, he starts off as a bit of a dork, but then gets bitten by the radioactive spider and then all of a sudden becomes very strong and very competent and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, physical strength, I mean, obviously just on a natural point of view, when you train yourself to become physically stronger, I mean, obviously we're both lame and crippled at the moment, but you become
so Mike's got dodgy knees, and I've got a dodgy back / left side of my body, which is like a half of my body. So, but yes.
But generally, physical strength is you know, when you incorporate resistance training, so i.e. to build your physical strength, you become less likely to injure yourself, and it's obviously it's a part of rehab, and it means you're less likely to injure yourself in the future. So it's actually part of the recovery for the injury process. And then also just for a longevity point of view, leg strength and grip strength are vital for aging well, for preventing slips, trips and falls and that sort of thing. So just on a natural basis, and again, just like we've got obviously self-esteem's all the rage still, but you generally tend to feel better about yourself and be more confident because you are physically stronger. There's, you know, when you are physically stronger, you, at least a part of your mind thinks, okay, I'm more able to take care of myself.
So there may be less tasks which require us to be physically strong in modern life, but you know, knowing that you're able to, I don't know, lift like a heavy box if you're moving house, knowing that you're able to defend yourself, you know, it sort of places a man in a kind of a better position, just in terms of his relationship with himself, his relationship with his environment, and it's a sort of a foundational block to masculine development. I mean, I know at the moment with my back being dodgy, I'm sort of tentative towards like lifting heavy things right now, and that makes me feel slightly unmanly. But perhaps there's wisdom in knowing how to like look after my body. So perhaps that's a good thing. But yeah, strength is certainly a masculine idea. Even though we live in a culture which is increasingly perhaps demonizing of men and masculinity, we will still hear many people say, "Oh, I need a man to do this job. Exactly. I need a man with a van. You know, I need a tall man to reach this, to do that. Please, can I find a man? Do you know a man?" That's still a widely recognised concept.
I mean, even the odd cliche, well, I need a man to open jam jars or whatever. It's
some of those jam jars are tough.
They are tough, especially if you injured your hand or whatever. They can be tricky to open. But again, just think of, and again, this is something which is really quite intuitive for us to value strength, especially in a group setting. Obviously, as we alluded to, men of old needed to be strong to protect the group, and even as children, when we're playing team sports, if you were to play rugby or something and you were the team captain, who would you want to pick? You would want to pick the strongest guy, because that would enable your team to win or give your team a better chance of winning. So it's something which is innate. We value physical strength, and though society may have changed, our values really don't change that much, or at least those kind of foundational values don't. We still value strength. Even if we say it's not as important, again, if a woman was to pick a husband, she'd probably want her husband to be stronger than her.
You know? 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, my wife's beat me in an arm wrestle.
Yeah, exactly.
it's really helped us to bond.
Yes,
No, I don't
yeah.
think so. Okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting kind of thinking of on the female front. It's like when women get like very, very, very physically strong, you know, or they lift a lot of weights, or, you know, they start to become a bit more masculine.
Yeah.
You know, like in appearance and action. Yeah, take that point for what it's worth. But yeah, in regards to courage as well. So moving on to the next virtue of courage, and in this regard, I think of the willingness to take risks. So again, why would it have been a virtue in old time? Well, obviously you need to be able to be willing to put yourself at risk for the sake of the group. So in a hunting scenario, it might need to be you that, you know, who needs to get the attention of the bullock or the tiger or whatever
Make
it is.
yourself the bait.
Exactly, make yourself the bait, or you need the courage to defend your tribe or your group from attackers and so on. So it's a willingness to put yourself in in harm's way. Like it's you know, people aren't, you know, coward is still a fighting word. Is it? No one wants to be referred to as a coward.
Oh yeah, that I would hate to be referred to as a coward, even if it wasn't true. Like that would kind of hit me in my man heart.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you struggle to articulate it, but it's just like, it's like that, like a deep part of you feels that. So yeah, it is still important. And again, you could argue if men are judged. I mean, obviously there are things which women are judged more harshly than men on. But in regards to no one, I would say no one generally tends to think less of a woman if she wasn't physically strong, if she was timid, or wasn't willing to take risks which would cause physical harm to herself. Whereas men is absolutely not the case. Obviously, we judge each other very harshly, for strength and for courage.
Yeah, if a man's not willing to take on a physical challenge, it's like, dude, you know, what's wrong with you? Whereas a lady, we'd be more than happy to alleviate them of a physical task, and maybe even eager to do so. Are there ever can a man ever have too much courage, or can it go over the top?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like there's the that's good. I'm gonna butcher this quote, but it's just like where does courage begin and foolhardiness end, sort of thing. You know, sometimes you think, okay, well, you know, it's brave to do something, but sometimes things are just stupid. If there's no evident reward for what it is that you're doing, then it's just stupid to do it, even if it is take quote unquote courage to do so.
I was just thinking of one of the, sort of like a classic nature program which follows the lives of like young lions as they grow up. You always get maybe 6 or 7 little cubs in a litter, and they've all got slightly different personalities, and you sort of follow these cubs and watch them develop. And there would always be one who has like a lot more courage than the rest, and he's like the first one out of the den. He's exploring, he's kind of chasing butterflies, but then one sort of pattern is one day he'll venture a little bit too far and stray into the territory of hyenas and then die, and it's all terribly sad.
You sure you're not just thinking about the Lion King?
Yeah, well, that might have just been once. I might just be thinking about the Lion King. But okay, so there may be limits to courage. But
to the point, and like I say, if you're, let's say for example, starting out in combat sports, and you know, obviously it takes a lot of courage to step in the ring for the first time. But if your first opponent, or if you get given the choice, your first opponent has had 10 professional bouts, and obviously you've had none. It's not brave stepping; it is just stupid.
It's just stupid. You might give that person a bit of respect, but you might also say to them,
like, why didn't you fight someone more on your level? Sort of thing.
Okay. So we've got strength, we've got courage. We're going towards respect.
So respect, or so it's a respect slash respect and loyalty. So in regards to this, it's like,
where do you get all these from? Any all these how did you decide on these
Oh,
terms?
so basically, all this year I've just like, especially at the beginning of the year, it's like, again, because we're just thinking back earlier, it's just like, what does it mean to be a man in this day and age?
Yeah.
Again, because the world we grew up in is very different to the worlds that that were before. So what does it mean to be a man in this day and age? So yeah, basically been listening to tons of audiobooks throughout the year.
Cool.
And
Cool.
yeah.
And you sort of pulled together your own
Yeah,
way
well,
of
a lot of
understanding
it comes from the so it's called the Way of Men, where it kind of outlines a lot of this stuff. So it's the Way of Men by Jack Donovan for those who are interested, and then also so if you wanted a more particularly Christian perspective on these things, so Jack Donovan himself not a Christian, atheist, but still good stuff. It's called Why Men Hate Going to Church.
Okay.
By David Murrow. It's a really good book, and again it outlines a lot of this stuff. But yeah, just to re-elaborate, the point we're trying to make is just to distinguish between because bad guys in movies. Again, we've spoken about Thanos or Darth Vader or Bane in Dark Knight Rises, and I'm sure there are many other super. I was going to do a dodgy Bane impression for that. They're all very strong. They're brave. You wouldn't say they were weak and timid.
Yeah, people respect.
Yeah,
they
have the respect. They have they have respect. They have a competence or a mastery of fighting arts and other disciplines. So these things are equally applied to bad men as they do good men. In fact, many gangs have their own honor codes and so on and so forth, which they judge each other by. So hence, like these virtues as such are amoral rather than moral/immoral.
Yeah, they're universal across all.
Yeah, exactly.
Any man.
Cross-culturally and so on.
Okay, well, respect you on the reading and research you've done. Sorry, that's my link back. So respect. So this is one of the base values of a man.
Yeah.
Like to be respectable.
So not so much to be respectable. So to earn and value the respect / honor of other peers in your group. So one of the points that Jack Donovan makes in the Way of Men is the Way of Men is the way of the gang. So again, hence the strength and the courage and the mastery relating to that survival group or group that you're a part of. And if you like say, we have this adage, which is a complete lie. It's just like, people say, I don't care what other people think about me. It's like
that you say that because you do care about what other people think of you, and you want them to know that you don't care. Anyway.
Yes, but it's obviously as we just said, it's a complete lie. If we're in a group of guys, I want those guys to respect me, and I want them to know that I want them to respect me, because then they know that I value them, sort of thing. Because if I'm like, okay, well, I don't care what you think of me, it's like, okay, well, yeah, you don't care what we think of you, and therefore you don't value what we value, sort of thing. So again, it all links back to that group.
Yeah, just thinking, there's a Bible verse. I think Apostle Paul writes like, to whoever you owe honor, give them honor, or if you owe someone a debt, like pay them your debt, and it's such an important thing. I recently had a business relationship break down, and we weren't too far away from each other in terms of the financial arrangement we wanted to do, but in terms of respect, I think on my side I felt there was like a massive deficit of respect, which wasn't paid, and I don't know. To me, the respect debt, the respect gap was almost more important than the financial gap.
Yeah, well, and it would make it almost impossible to work with someone who either you didn't respect, or you knew that person didn't respect you. And it's important for St. Paul, obviously, respect as well. Obviously, he sought the respect / approval of the other apostles in Jerusalem.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and you got the Christian idea. You grow in wisdom and stature before God, yes, but it's before God and men.
Yeah.
Because if you're really growing in God's eyes, there probably will be some godly men who recognise that. So yeah, we have that as kind of a check and balance.
And obviously, again, in this Western, the current context we're in, which is much more individualistic now than obviously ages gone by. There was a phrase, I'm going to completely botch it, but it's something like solus Christus, nolus Christus, a solo
Latin.
Indeed, more Latin.
More Latin.
God forbid. It's like a solo Christian is not a Christian sort of thing. And then there's this ancient idea of there's no salvation outside of the church. Which, you can argue whether or not that's biblical or not, but the idea is, you should value the community.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Peter, when the church starts at Pentecost, so the very first church, Peter talks about Jesus, talks about how humanity has allowed the Son of God to be crucified on a cross of all things, and then the people they're cut to their heart. And they say, well, what should we do? Well, he says, repent and believe in Jesus, who is God's Son and God's means of atonement for you, for your sins. And he says, leave this adulterous and sinful generation and be joined to the church. So there's a community element.
And again, obviously, some people believe St. Paul wrote the Epistle to the Hebrews, others don't, but either way, in Hebrews it says, forsake not the gathering of yourselves together. So it's not me, myself and Jesus. It's, independent
me,
of
myself and Jesus.
Independent of the church, is again, you're not to forsake the gathering of yourselves together. So again, that community, and if you're part of a community, hopefully you value what they think of you.
Yes. And that can be hard, really, to have relationships which are so close, where you do go under that scrutiny. And I think there's Tim Keller, he's got a few quotes that we really want connection, we really want friendship, but we're like terrified of commitment and accountability.
For sure.
But the thing is, we don't really get those deep connections or deep friendships without some level of like accountability along with that. Okay, so we've done strength, we've done courage, we've done respect, and then my last one I've got written down on my little A5 bit of paper here. Actually, I think it says 6. Is confidence.
Competence.
Confidence with a F for Fred. Is that one of them?
No, competence.
Oh, so I've deliberately made a joke here. And been deliberately incompetent, just to illustrate the point. So yes, I'm sorry, correction, competence. Well, I don't think I can speak to that. What's that all about?
Yeah, so competence, obviously. So basically, like I say, really simply, is being useful. Like say, being able to offer the group in that setting some sort of service, that skill. And obviously, again, back in the tribal setting, that competence would have related probably to hunting. Again, Roman times, you think competence being, or mastery of like war fighting, so swordsmanship or archery and so on, or javelin throwing, which I know you're quite competent at. Just think about it again. If in your group, or let's just say your end of the world scenario, you've got a gang. Obviously, you want fellow men to be strong, you want them to be courageous, and you want them to be skills that's competent. And again, like taking that out from perhaps self-defense or a fighting ability. Is really interesting. I can't remember when it was recorded, but a long time ago. So Jocko Willink, Navy SEAL, was reading out some of the letters that he'd received, and he received a letter from a French kid, and he said, my parents are very intellectual, but not very practical, and it's just like, how do I get better at man skills? And he said, Jocko just kind of stopped there and said, isn't it interesting how we know exactly what it means when he says man skills?
Yes.
Kind of like, and then he basically boiled out the ability to fight and fix stuff. Fighting and fix stuff. And we've spoken before about how, like, when we can't do something practically and we have to get someone else to do it, it's emasculating, isn't it?
It is emasculating. And you can pay through the nose to get people to do to do things. I remember I think something I've got people to do for me before. I think I've tried it before, is to like change a bulb in the headlight. I think I got someone from Halfords to do that for £5 or something for me. And this like young lad came out. He was probably 6-7 years younger. And he knew how to do it. But he showed me to. Some cars it's easy, and some cars it's harder. You need to know what you're doing. Yeah. But once you know what you're doing, it's quite straightforward. Yeah. And I think I did feel emasculated the first time of having to ask. Yeah. But then when you learn sort of how to do it and you're able to, that feels much more empowering. Yeah. You don't need to drive to Halfords. You don't need to ask some guy to do it for you.
Not to one up for you, but I'm about to one up you.
Let's prepare myself.
No, so a similar Halford story is again had to change the bulb in a Toyota Corolla that I had, and on the right hand side, so driver's side, loads of space to change a bulb, really easy. On the other side, the car battery is right up against the bulb, and I couldn't fit my hand in, so I bought the bulb. You look at my meat cleavers.
You do have like bigger hands.
Yeah, and I couldn't get my hand in to change the bulb, so I had to pay a woman with the daintiest hands who worked at Halfords to change it for me.
Oh, well, that's fair enough,
But even she struggled to get her hand in this space, so terribly built or designed layout of the car. But kind of thinking before, because we look at generations who came before us, and I think of my late granddad. As regards to practical skills.
Yeah, he lived to like over 100.
Yeah, right? So he lived to 101.
And for a long time, for his last few years with us, he was like living on his own.
So he lived independently, basically up to the age of 98, and was still wielding a sledgehammer at 93.
that's just crazy.
But in regards to the practical skills, I mean, he was an engineer by trade, and then like did all the jobs by himself. And if there was ever a job which he couldn't do, he would call somebody once to do and watch them like a hawk, take notes so that he wouldn't have to call them out again. But those skills didn't get passed on to my dad, and then those skills also didn't get passed on to me. So we kind of think about the importance of being you just think of the word tradition. Tradition means to passed on, something which was passed on. That kid taught you how to change the bulb in your car, but these aren't things that we don't just by virtue of our gender.
By osmosis.
We don't all of a sudden don't know how to fight, or we don't know how to fix things around the house, or we don't know how to get strong. So these things have to be taught to us. So the importance of we learn what it means to be a man by hanging around with other men and being discipled.
100%. So we will grow hair out of our face naturally, but the skills we actually have to acquire probably from other men. Okay, on skills and on competency, I've got a genuine question. I wonder what you think. So I've been doing a few more man jobs lately, like a bit of painting, gardening, removals, so on and so on. But then a job I've taken on recently is like selling stuff on eBay. And I just wonder, in the modern world, what do you think? Do you think it's a masculine trait to be digitally literate? For example, most people who are computer coders and that kind of thing, those kind of software engineers, they're typically men. Do we think that is a male attribute in particular, to be able to sharpen your mind and learn a coding language, be able to hack something? Is that particularly male, or would we kind of refer to that as more nerdy and therefore perhaps unmasculine?
I think temperamentally you could say it's more male than female, because again, I think Jordan Peterson's made this point in regards to children, like boys generally have an interest in things, whereas girls generally have an interest in people. So kind of and then he uses the Scandinavian countries where they've pursued equality. more vigorously than they have in the UK or whatever, or they pursue equality of outcome, and basically that's just increased polarity. So kind of like all the engineers are overwhelmingly men and all the nurses are overwhelmingly female, kind of like emphasizing the point that men are more interested in things as a rule, and women more interested in people. So kind of like the majority of the counsellors, psychologists and mental health professionals are all overwhelmingly female. Obviously nurses, female profession. And the vast majority of engineers are men. Not obviously fixing the things in regards to engineering, would say that's traditionally masculine, because it's competence. Though again, stereotypically, you don't associate the internet side of things or computer side of things as being masculine.
But I guess you've got like Elon Musk. You've got like Mark Zuckerberg. I can't think of like a female equivalent to those two archetypes. But I guess, I don't know, being able to fix a computer, like, I don't know, do you feel manly after doing that particularly? I mean, certainly you're being able to, well, there's a fixing element, but you're kind of sat down typing away and Googling stuff rather than bashing something with a hammer. It's just it's quite an interesting thought. Okay, well we'll park that thought.
Well, just interestingly, both. So I don't know how involved in the social media sewer you are.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Do you?
Right, are you talking about the potential fight?
Yes.
which never actually happened.
Which never happened.
Between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, and all the associated speculation. It was kind of fun.
Indeed,
The phenomenon.
Yeah. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I think Elon Musk would win just because he's just bigger.
Yes. Well, who knows? Maybe they'll fight. Maybe they won't.
Yeah.
Though interestingly, solidarity with Mr. Zuckerberg, is he too has ruptured his ACL.
Well, that is what I was going to come on to. So, the masculine virtues that we've kind of gone through, so strength, courage, competency, and respect, they're all like manly things. We didn't really add kind of digital literacy into that, and I don't think I'd say it goes in that kind of group, although it's definitely, I think, obviously important.
Yeah, well, obviously.
So my question is like, in terms of the development of a man, is that it, or are we saying these are kind of like base level?
No, so I would say, obviously, as alluded to, so again, these are distinctly more valuable to men than they are women, as we obviously alluded to earlier. But no, obviously the masculine journey isn't solely about getting strong and getting brave. These are just aspects or what we said, the base / foundational virtues, which are more important for men than they are women. Obviously, again, using the hypothetical or historical kind of like gang / survival tribe scenario.
So to summarize that, so if we maximize our strength, courage, competency and respect values, if we maximize all those things, work really hard on them, achieve great things in those areas, we still will not have fully arrived as a man.
No,
because
so you'd be very, like, let's say you, as you said, you maximize those qualities, you'd be very manly, but you wouldn't necessarily be a good man. And obviously we want to be integrated, so we want to be, a good manly man. So again, just some of the...
Why can you not just sort of like maximize on strength, courage, competency and respect, and then just impose yourself on the world? And why not? What do we think?
Well, I mean...
I know I'm firing all kinds of questions. Feel free to fire a question back at me.
Well, perhaps I will.
Well, perhaps you should.
Well, I mean, so why can't you just impose yourself on the world? Well, again, so obviously we're viewing things through the lens of Christ and the church and scripture. So it's it's the Christian call, I would say, is to be an integrated man. And I think St. Paul writes to Timothy, exercises of it's of value, it is of good value, but godliness is greater, sort of thing. So again, we want to develop character, because as we've alluded to, obviously we've had a number of injuries, but as you get older, your physical strength will begin to fade. As you get older and you take on more responsibility, it's not necessarily as responsible to take as many risks as you might have done when you were younger. Obviously, respect is still important. You still want to be well integrated as part of your church community or your gang of male peers, which we should obviously we'll re-highlight that in a sec. And then obviously, there will come a point in your life where you will require other people to do things for you, even if you are the most competent guy in the world. Again, if you're inhibited by injury or illness, and you can't mow the lawn, and the more lawn needs mowing, you will need to get someone else in to mow the lawn, and so on and so forth. But what will always stand will be your character. So that's obviously what St. Paul, an aspect of what St. Paul means, and that is godliness is more profitable, is more valuable than your physical body.
Okay, it's a good answer. And to bring things to Christ, to bring things back to the Bible, like when Christ came, when he came as the Messiah, so like the leader, the liberator, who was kind of promised, particularly to the Jews, but also to the world. Some people were really, really surprised and even disappointed.
Oh, of course,
by the way in which he came.
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously, because at the time, children of Israel were under the occupation of the Romans, so they were expecting or hoping the Messiah to liberate them from the Roman rule.
By force.
By force, and obviously there was obviously alluded to before. There was a group of time called the Zealots, who were hoping and for this apocalyptic return of the Messiah to liberate them, and they were all ready to bring about that violent overthrow of the Romans. But he did not come in that fashion at all. And again, that's not to say, as we've alluded to before, that Christ was unmanly. Obviously, it's not as obvious as and certainly going to church, you wouldn't necessarily get the picture that Christ was a physically strong man. But obviously, as we've alluded to before, stonemason by trade or carpenter. So
need strength for that.
Yeah, physically strong man.
Need competency.
Indeed.
Competent.
Obviously, he had mastered the craft. He was never afraid of speaking the truth.
Courage,
and was always willing to, because there are many who sought his life, and then the ultimate test of courage was the cross, which he overcame. And then again, there was an authority there which both his disciples recognised. As they were willing to leave behind everything to follow him, and again, these were manly men. These weren't, these weren't
fishermen.
Exactly, zealots as well.
Yeah.
So
tax collector for the technical.
Exactly. I do love how the Chosen have portrayed Matthew actually.
Oh, really good. Yeah, because he's fairly autistic. Yeah.
That's a side note. But again, he ticks all those masculine boxes. Kind of like he was integrated, so he wasn't solely, he wasn't a gym bro who says, just lift weights and you'll inherit the kingdom of God. He was about character reform as well, and living, call people to repentance, to live a holy life and follow him.
There's that verse in Philippians which says like I think something like the Son of Man, the Christ, he did not come to like dominate the world, but to kind of submit himself to God, becoming obedient, even obedient to the cross. So the ultimate man, Jesus, came into the world ultimately to sacrifice himself for us. So that's what he does with his strength. And it's amazing. You could say that Jesus was maximally strong, courageous, competent, and was maximally respected by people who saw him in the correct light. And despite having maximized those things, he was also very humble. So he didn't kind of use his strength, courage, competence just for his own agenda. But he was so kind of strong-minded that he managed to direct his life towards like the maximum good of not just himself but all humanity. And maybe we can say, to overcome the self, to overcome the ego, is also something that Jesus absolutely maximized on. And that's quite a different motion. That's quite a different direction for maximizing your own strength, your own courage. And that's interesting, isn't it? It's, men, we're not supposed to be just one dimensional in that sense. There's to becoming the ideal man, there's kind of got to be balance and integration, which isn't easy. It's if you're getting stronger, it's lift a heavier weight. Can I do it? Yes or no? But to know if you're becoming more like the ideal man, that is much trickier to know.
Yeah, absolutely. As you just highlighted, as you said, when you're becoming physically stronger, you probably know when you're becoming more courageous as well.
Yeah.
If you're, let's just say, I don't know, so let's say like mountain biking is something you got into, you'd know when you're becoming braver because you'd be taking more on more bigger, more dangerous jumps and that sort of thing.
Measurable, it's obvious.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say competence is very, easy to measure. Are you able to, if we're looking at it through the lens of fixing things, are you able to fix more things this month than you were, the previous few months? And, what's your relationship like with other men? Are you valued by them? These are all kind of very measurable. Yeah, it's just like, and yet kind of like holiness, it's just like, I think of becoming more holy today. It's like, I guess smacks of pride.
Well, you could measure that by maybe have I kind of sinned in a horrendous way less? That's perhaps measurable. But then you might be doing that out of pride. Like you might be doing that because you want to kind of show off to someone. So it's much more complex, isn't it? And I suppose the thing that we have to develop, I suppose we have to develop our sort of conscience muscle, which is the part of us which kind of connects to God. We have to develop our spirituality, which is like a whole other enterprise.
Oh yeah, definitely. And but just to kind of like circle back to again the more foundational virtues. So one would hope that when you're developing your physical strength, which is, as we said, easy enough to do, you start going to a gym and doing your compound lifts. So these are lifts where you hit multiple joints and muscle groups, and you begin very quickly to notice strength gains. That requires discipline, obviously, and you start to incorporate some of the other some of the other values and some other virtues and character traits which are good to develop. One would hope as you become physically stronger, you become a little bit mentally stronger and a little bit more resilient as well. And then likewise with the virtue of courage, if you're able to take physical risks and risk yourself or risk hurting yourself potentially, then like one would hope that you become more courageous in regards to standing up for moral issues. So you would have, as well as developing physical courage, you'd also develop moral courage. Obviously, these two aren't synonymous, which is why I haven't highlighted them.
So it's like, no use being able to stand up really well if you don't stand up for what's good.
Exactly.
So like you've got to have a clue of what's good. So you need to develop a morality. It just kind of strikes me like to begin that relationship with Jesus, to begin that spiritual development. One of the things which is paradoxical is you've got to say to yourself, well, I can get really strong, I am strong, I can get really courageous, and I am courageous, but I have to put those things to one side. I have to realise that strength on its own can't get me where I need to be. My own courage can't get me there. I actually have to look at the strength of Christ, look at the courage of Christ, look at what he achieved on the cross for me and all humanity, and I have to humbly kind of go to him to receive what he's done for me, and at that point, at the point of not operating in your own strength, that's the starting point to following Christ, which is quite an interesting thing. So we've looked at some base masculine virtues, and we've then gone on to some more complex things. We want to do we will do a series on this and look into this some more, and then I thought we'd just maybe end by talking about some of our like loftier ideas, because there's one idea that we sometimes talk about, which is one day to maybe have like a finishing school for men, maybe in a castle, maybe in the Lake District. The castle bit might be more my idea, but yeah, I guess this could maybe happen with these kinds of ideas and these kind of talks, and it could.
Who knows?
Who knows?
I mean, obviously, it's the more short-term goal is obviously to start locally. I mean, again, just getting men together. Obviously, it's been a point we've made before, but it's so key. Again, especially like in your growing in your faith as well. Like I said, I mean, you want ideally men of a similar age, and or just men, any age, and who have your faith, who have your worldview, and gather together regularly and fellowship with one another.
Are there any men out there? Are there any men left?
Well, we'll find out soon.
We'll find some.
So again, so gather with men, fellowship with men on a regular basis, and then it is important for you as an individual, as a man, to take good care of your body and not get too many injuries. Get your body strong. Take care of it. Develop your courage. Learn to defend yourself. I think as part of one of the roles of a man to protect, and how can you protect if you haven't mastered your body and increase your physical strength, and if you don't know how to defend yourself. So I think learn, whether that's boxing, whether that's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think, or whether it's just self-defense classes. I think learning to defend yourself is a vital part of, again, just my opinion, of being a man. And I certainly see it as my role as a man to protect my my wife and daughter, and how can I protect them if I don't know how to defend myself first. So I see that as an integral role. And then again, as we said, learning how to be a man, we learn how to be a man from spending time with other men. It's something which is is passed on. Obviously, you alluded to like a finishing school, which we've discussed before. But again, it's what would we actually do there? It'd be ideally pass on those skills, which those quote unquote man skills. Which we never received. And again, how do you learn those? Well, other men.
Yes, and it would be a really, really quite a long road to getting to a point of getting a castle in the Lake District and having a whole... I'm kind of thinking of like X-Men now, where Charles Xavier has that whole school for mutants, all with their like abilities to kind of nurture them. But short of that, we can, this is something all men can do. We can meet with each other, we can get real, talk about life, talk about how we need to move forward, challenge each other as well, because that's so important. You need encouragement, but you also need challenge. And if you're going wrong, you need to be pulled up on it. And if you're doing good, you need, it's good to have that like respect from peers. I guess there's all kinds of ways that we can kind of do that, just part of day-to-day life, like meet other men for breakfast, develop friendships, make WhatsApp groups, and there's all kinds of ways that we can cultivate this. Because one thing Jesus calls Christians to is it's like discipleship. It's like make disciples of all nations, and that's basically like having apprentices and being an apprentice to others. It's just that close relationship where you're friends, you're on the same side, but you've also got tasks to achieve and skills to build, adventures to go on, and it's doing it together. So yeah. But yeah, one day this could become a castle.
One day. And hopefully not just a castle in the sky.
Yes.
So yeah, this has been the Build Dad, the Shoe Hide podcast. Thank you very much for listening. As we said, this episode we've discussed the aims, the future aims of the podcast. To discuss again masculine virtue. We've discussed today the foundational virtues, or the physicality or the physical side of things. So the strength, courage, mastery, and honor, which pertain to masculinity as such versus morality. And over the following weeks, we'll be looking at more the as virtue. Think of it as in terms of ethics and character. So, any final thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, well, no, just love to sort of hear anybody's feedback on this. Hear some of your own ideas. I don't know. I'd be particularly interested to hear from people with technical skills about what they think that has to do with masculinity. Obviously, we're putting this out using a phone, using YouTube, so all kinds of digital stuff happening there. That's just something which has grabbed me today. But yeah, loved doing the podcast. Hope we've done it competently and with the right level of confidence, and ideally a bit of humility thrown in as well. Sorry about the humour; it's terrible. But yeah, thanks for listening, and look forward to next time.